Sri Ramana says that perfect peace is of the self. It is eternal peace, changeless peace. The fullness of it is ineffable, indeed inconceivable. Yet it is realized as one's very being. How can your very being be described? We give it a word: being, existence, sat. But what is the significance? Without beginning, without end, for it is eternal. It cannot be defined by bodily attributes and activities, states and conditions. Birthless, deathless. You can think of all things as something. But your existence is more than that, subtler than that, far too formless to ever be defined by any idea, yet realized vividly as truth itself, by deeply diving within, inquiring, who am I? We can think of something, describe something, in relation to something else. But what of that which is absolute, of an utterly transcendent nature, nameless, formless? This is your own being. Bodiless, limitless. Existence is simultaneously consciousness. It is not inert. You can think of any thought, obviously. But can you think of consciousness itself? It is directly known, immediately known, but never as an object of thought. Whatever idea be conjured up, whatever definition or concept might be imagined, for you or for anything else, that which knows, but remains unknown, yet self-luminous and knowing itself, is consciousness, which is your very being. Existence that can never go out of existence. Without birth, without death. What is true for being consciousness is true of bliss or peace. For pieces of the self. The root of peace is immutability, changelessness. What does not change? Obviously, the world of objects, illusory as they are, is characterized by change. What does not change? The body changes, whether you want it to or not. What does not change? The mind is characterized by motion. What does not change? The supposition of I appears and disappears according to whether you're waking, dreaming, or in deep sleep. What does not change? Everything about which you know and everything experienced changes. But you always exist, changelessly. The existence that is consciousness, which knows changelessly, knowing when there is something, knowing when there is nothing. Ever shining, being consciousness is peace. Confound the self with what is not the self, and the peace seems disturbed. The bliss seems as if veiled. It has not gone away. It is ever as it is, in perfect fullness. It's as if in the midst of perfect fullness there was imagination, that there was, the state of affairs was otherwise. But that which is peace itself is present always. Discern clearly, through a deep introspective inquiry, what your real nature is, so that the attributes of something objective are not superimposed in imagination upon the consciousness, which is your actual existence. Discern clearly, so that that which is non-objective is not confused with what's objective. The non-eternal with the eternal. The non-self with the self. If that which is not truly I is removed through clear knowledge from that which is ever truly the I. Only the perfect fullness remains. Repose in the nature of your own self. Yet if you have a question, please feel free to ask it. Or if you wish to relate your own experience, please feel free to speak.
I've been thinking a lot about thinking. I do it a lot. And, excuse me, I don't understand where it comes from, the thinking. If there's nothing but the self is not producing the thinking, who is?
The question assumes the thought is actually existent. What gives you that idea?
Because I'm assuming I'm a body and a mind. And something that I'm considering I is listening to this commentary going on, which is what I consider the thought.
It's one kind of thought. All of your sensations are another kind of thought. Everything objective is thought.
Mm-hmm.
Even time and space are thought. What knows the thoughts?
What I want to answer to that, but I think it's, it's not correct, but what I want to answer from that is, what knows the thought is this entity that I think is me, that is fielding the thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Not only fielding the thoughts, but perhaps is the cause of them.
Okay.
In other words, the thoughts are conjured up according to the name and form attributed to that entity. So explore that entity, examine it. What is it?
I get to a point where I really can say I can't find anything there. But I always start off thinking, yeah, there's this entity, and I have to sort of work my way out of that.
Well, dissect it. Examine what makes up the so-called entity. It doesn't feel so-called to you, so examine it. Since that entity is regarded as the I in you, trace your sense of identity. Apparently, you can lend your identity to any number of thoughts and suppositions. Trace the source of it. Where is it streaming forth from? There are ever so many thoughts. Each thought seems fairly important while you're having it. After it's gone, the next one seems important. And the process seems to go on almost endlessly. From where does the sense of importance derive? The thought seems real, it seems vivid. Where is the vividness coming from? The vividness doesn't get exhausted. It's as vivid now as it was 30, 40 years ago. But the thoughts are different. Even if they take the same kind of thought, it's a new thought. The old one doesn't repeat, it's a new one that looks like the old one. The vividness, though, the sense of it being real, and the sense of I know this, you know, the thought, remains the same without diminishing. Trace that to its source. The source must be something other than the form of thought. So by inquiry, attempt to see the source with an attitude of neti neti, not this, not thus, towards whatever's just a thought. No, that's not it, that's not quite it. Go on tracing the sense of identity or reality, that vividness, or the sense of knowing to its source. They all will amount to the same. That's why I'm suggesting them like this. And if you pursue this inquiry, you will know the answer experientially.
It's helpful when you say the vividness of it. It's funny because certainly I've been listening to your teaching for many, many years, but every once in a while there's a new word that points me maybe in a different direction. So the thing that makes them real, yeah, that's interesting.
It's very interesting, isn't it? How you can think about ever so many things, and each one seems real or vivid or of fascination at the moment. And that reality, that vividness, goes with you while the thought is long dead. Mm-hmm. It cannot belong to a thought then. What does it belong to? Finding that, you will know the nature of consciousness. When consciousness knows itself, you will understand what is meant that there's no such thing as thought. Where consciousness alone exists, that is the state declared to be free from thought.
What is changeless is my existence. It never changes. And if I look at the qualities, or it's hard to describe something that has no form, but is always the same. And when it's described as being, that is consistent with the experience of what doesn't change. And I can see now the questions that I had about certainty and finality is my very existence. That is the changeless. And when I seek finality and what I'm actually seeking is the immutable peace that you described, the changeless peace. And yesterday, celebrating Sri Ramana's self-realization, I've really been meditating a lot on what is this self-realization that I seek. And you've always talked about, and Ramana's talked about, self-realization. The heart of it is knowledge. That's the part that's steady, is the knowledge of one's existence. It's inescapable.
Inescapable and inseparable. Being is the knowledge. Therefore, the previous instruction was that finality does not lie in time, it's not an event. Finality in one's spirituality is found in the absolute nature of one's being.
Yes, in that the seeking of finality is, you could say, is finally over, because there is no, the reason I seek finality is because the apparent breaks in that knowledge of oneself.
Yes, but it's the ignorance that's broken.
In many ways.
In more ways than one. In that also is Brahmana's continuous grace and his continuous compassion and continuous I could say, you could say, well, it feels like continuous attention to what I need to know. He never seems to forget what I need to know. There's no confusion on his part about how to free oneself. And just his continuous ubiquitous being everywhere. You can't miss. If you even just start paying little attention, because if you pay just a little attention, grace has a way of supplying the rest. Then grace is ever there, and grace is always full, never more or less at any time. And since his very nature is that absolute self, that alone is his existence. Therefore, he also said, grace is of the self. The self is your grace. But that self has not a trace of individuality in it. That the ego never has any existence is the finality. There is therefore only one self. The differentiation of a supreme self and an individual self is not true. The individual I does not actually exist at all. So there's grace, but no recipient of it. There is self-realization, or the reality of the self, but no unrealized being, no unrealized state.
When I look at what existence the ego has, it's actually the opposite of existence. But you really can't have the opposite of existence, because it would say that it has some kind of existence, it has a non-existent, but it's even less existent than non-existent.
It's not an existent non-existence, yes. Okay.
There's reality and then there's unreality, but...
No, there's just one undivided or non-dual existence. We could say, as Sri Bhagavan has said on occasion, even the ego is not apart from that, but that doesn't mean an ego actually exists. It simply means there's only this solitary, undifferentiated existence.
To understand that clearly would be to say, if there is any existence, it is still only the same solitary existence. If one were to say, well, there's an ego, it's just misunderstanding.
The misunderstanding or ignorance also cannot stand up on its own. There's still only one existence. But in that one existence, there is no such thing as ignorance.
It's because it would have to be somebody who's ignorant, and there isn't somebody else.
Just the cessation of the imagination of somebody else is the essence. The principle understood in this applies also to understanding such statements as, the world is unreal, the self alone is real, the world is none other than the self. All three sentences mean the same thing.
Thank you, Master. I also found your discourse and dialogues bringing me back to Sri Ramana readings, and there were two phrases that I tried to take in afresh. One was that of finding the place where the I thought could seem to arise. And it reminded me of another record of his teaching that I really loved, where it seemed that he said one way to state the goal would be to find the place where the I thought doesn't arise. And that use of the analogy place seemed to be very rich in inspiration. The other phrase that I tried to take in very fresh was the shock of the fear of death. Not that that was a practice that was destined for any other particular person, but the recognition of the transiency of identification as an individual body and the urgent necessity to be established in one's real identity. It seems that when mundane life is carried on casually, it's in denial of that transiency, and that the young sage to be and then sage was facing that with full intensity. The word shock couldn't have been just accidental. I mean, that's one of the best ways of, pointing to an indescribable intensity. Now, those are two different questions, but those were the two that really stayed with me, especially in terms of the place, how the place where it would arise, it would seem a happier day when it's the place where it doesn't arise.
If you seek the place where I arises, you will find that in which no I ever arises.
Mm-hmm. Same place.
Same place.
And the significance of that shock of the fear of death. I was trying to, as best I could, put my own consciousness, trailing after his own, because he was going in the right direction.
Yes, he definitely was going in the right direction. Life and death, they're plainly evident facts. You know that your body will die. In that sense, it's not surprising. On the other hand, it calls you urgently to fulfill the purpose of life before it's over. Deeper still, no one wishes to go out of existence. It is an intuition that eternal existence is our nature. And it is an intuition that existence is bliss. Otherwise, we wouldn't mind going out of existence. But we know that our existence is our happiness, so we do not wish for it to cease at any time. If you know that perpetual existence is perpetual happiness, and you know that your body is going to die, what does this tell you to do?
Tells you to seek what you want, in one sense, before it's too late. in terms of having the guidance right now, the opportunity right now, seize that opportunity.
So it tells you to intensely, deeply, continuously, very seriously inquire, so that you know yourself as free from the body, which is perishing. Now he said that what he had realized, what he had done, can be done by all. There is no difference in the self-nature. It may not be that you will replicate the story of being in your uncle's house and lying down in fear of death, all this kind of thing. But the actual inquiry, the turning within, in an intensely focused manner, to determine what your nature, what your identity is, and thereby get beyond the boundaries of life and death, by finding out how your nature is bodiless being. This everyone can do. And if they want peace and happiness, they must. He said the I sense doesn't rise from the body. The I notion does not rise from the self, which is pure consciousness. But through ignorance, tying the two together, it appears as a hybrid, which is actually neither of them. If you seek it, if you look for its place of origin, if you seek its source, if you try to determine its nature, it will vanish because it's unreal. And with its vanishing is the disappearance of every kind of suffering.
So that tying together, I can see that, during your discourse you mentioned the changeless, and it struck me, oh my God.
That's good. Yeah, that's changeless.
That's enough.
Just stop right there. Just, oh my God.
That that I've confused that changeless substratum that is almost ignored with all the stuff objective that's objective. And I guess what you're just saying with Jay, saying to Jay that there's confusion between the objective and the non-objective.
It's a funny thing, isn't it, that the reality, appearing as the substrate of illusion, would be ignored, and the illusion, which is bound to vanish and can at any moment, is taken to be so important. The reality is your happiness, your peace. The illusion, not so. So which should be given the greater emphasis?
It's only my lack of discrimination, though, that it seems like that is what, because whenever I turn my mind inward, I notice, okay, I've been taking just blind ignorance, just assuming I'm objective.
Are you?
Oh, it never comes out in the meditation that I'm something objective. Never points that way. But I feel like, when you were talking to Jay about, connecting the two, it seems like I have to really clear up, ensure that there's no connection between
The one who desires the clarity, even now, is he a body? You see, you're not actually lacking in discrimination.
Maybe it's the belief in the power of Maya.
What is Maya?
Well, when you said the thing about the changeless, I just felt like Maya was really the changeless. Because when you said the changeless, it's like this is what runs through everything. I mean, it's just so... I just assume myself to be, pasted something over this infinite self that's changeless. Confuse it.
Does Maya always appear?
No.
Then it can't be changeless.
But it seems like I'm pasting images of Maya on, this monolithic self.
Who's the painter? What's his nature?
assumed.
So he is not I. Who am I? Who are you? Maya is not a power in itself. Its power is borrowed. Maya does not truly exist, as indicated by the Maharshi by saying Maya is that which is not. Ma, not that which. Maya, that which is not. If you keep making your vision non-objective, always turning the inquiry back in on yourself, who am I? There's no scope left for Maya. If there be Maya, it ceases to exist. If you try to find your happiness in Maya, try to find yourself in Maya, Maya seems to go on forever. And beginningless too.
And I could, from my own experience, I see that because I'm not even introverting my mind at all, it seems like it doesn't question. You have to question.
But if you question, Maya is rolled up. Not only is it rolled up, it dissolves. It disappears. It proves to be utterly unreal. Ramana said that why, being the self, we imagine ourselves to be otherwise is Maya. It's all in the mind, he said. Just illusions in the mind. It does not mean there's an actual thing called Maya. Because the self is actually always the self. And they're not two selves. You have to find it out by inquiry. Mind transcendent inquiry.
You spoke of life and death, and I know that there is no life and death, really. Why do we come here and do this whole human thing? Why does it happen, even if it's unreal, and we create it all, and we collectively create it all? What is its purpose?
If we view it like that, then we don't really understand that it's unreal, do we? It's like saying,
I see that.
in a dream, Why have we all come here? If we knew it was a dream, it'd be over. So you can say you dream so that you can wake up. But once you wake up, you find the dream never actually occurred at all. There was nothing to it.
Why does it seem so vivid?
That was what was being alluded to before. Where does the vividness come from? It doesn't come from the objects. It doesn't come from the sensations. It doesn't come from your thoughts. Where does it come from? Nothing stands up, as it were, and declares, I'm real, I'm vivid. You say, it is real, it is vivid. What's the nature of that you? If it's not a body, then it's not here or now or any such thing.
The vividness is my essence. It's all it is.
If that vividness remains in its source, that is wisdom. To mix up the real with the unreal, that's called delusion. Delusion makes for unhappiness. Wisdom makes for happiness. If we simply cease to misidentify as a body, or as a mind, or as an individual, an ego, all will be clear. And the idea of manifesting, living, dying, etc., those ideas vanish.
यदा वै सुखं लभेद करोति ना सुखं लब्ध्वा करोति सुखमेव लब्ध्वा करोति सुखं त्वेव विजिज्ञासितव्यमिति सुखं भगवो विजिज्ञास इति.
When one gets joy, then indeed one acts. Without getting joy, one does not act. Having got joy, one indeed acts. But joy indeed has to be sought after. O Venerable Sir, I seek after joy.
Yo vai bhuma tat sukham nalpe sukhamasti bhumaiva sukham bhuma tveva vijijñāsitavya iti bhumanam bhagavo vijijñāsa iti.
That which is indeed the infinite, that is joy. There is no joy in the finite. The infinite alone is joy. But in the infinite, indeed, has to be sought after. O Venerable Sir, I seek after the infinite.
Yatra nānyat pashyate nānyat shrunoti nānyat vijānāti sabhūma ada yatrānyat pashyate yanyat shrunoti yanyat vijānāti tadalpam yo vai bhūmā tadamritamada yadalpam tanmartyakam sa bhagavaha kasmin pratishtita iti swemahimni यदि वा न महिम्नीति.
The infinite is that where one does not see anything else, does not hear anything else, and does not understand anything else. Hence, the finite is that where one sees something else, hears something else, and understands something else. That which indeed is the infinite is immortal. On the other hand, that which is finite is mortal. O Venerable Sir, on what is that established? In its own glory, or not even in its own glory?
Sa evadastat sa uparishtat sa paschat sa purattat sa dakshinatah sa uttaratah sa evetakam sarvamityadhato ahankaradesha evaham evadastham aham uparishtan aham paschadaham purastadaham dakshinadoham uttaratohamevedakam sarvamiti.
He indeed is below, he is above, he is behind, he is in front, he is in the south, he is in the north, he indeed is all this. Hence, after that follows the instruction with the help of the ego. I am indeed below, I am above, I am behind, I am in front, and I am in the south, I am in the north, I indeed am all this.
Adhada atma desha evamatmeva adhastad atmoparishtad atma paschad atma purastad atma dakshinata atmottarada atmaivedakam sarvamiti sava esha evam pashyannevam manvana evam vijanannatma atmaradi atmakrida atmamiduna atmanantassa swarad bhavati tasya sarveshu lokeshu kamacharo bhavati adha yenyadhado viduhu anyarajannaste kshayaloka bhavanti tesham sarveshu lokeshu akamacharo bhavati.
Hence, thereafter follows the instruction with the help of the self. The self indeed is below, the self is above, the self is behind, the self is in the front, the self is in the south, the self is in the north. The self indeed is all this. Anyone who sees thus, reflects thus, understands thus, revels in the self, disports in the self, has union in the self, has pleasure in the self. He becomes a sovereign. He has freedom of movement in all the worlds. On the other hand, those who understand otherwise than this come under a different ruler and belong to the worlds that are subject to decay. They have no freedom of movement in all the worlds.
Tasya hava etassevam pashyata evam manvanassevam vijanata atmata prana atmata ashat atmata smara atmata akasha atmata steja atmata apa atmata avirbhavatiro bhavavatmato namatmato valamatmato vijnanamatmato dhyanamatmata chittamatmata sankalpa atmato mana atmato vagatmato namatmato mantra mata karmanyat mata evetakam sarvamiti.
Of that man indeed who sees thus, who reflects thus, who realizes thus, the vital force springs from the self. Hope springs from the self. Memory springs from the self. Space springs from the self. Fire springs from the self. Water springs from the self. Appearance and disappearance spring from the self. Food springs from the self. Strength springs from the self. Understanding springs from the self. Meditation springs from the self. Intelligence springs from the self. Will springs from the self. Mind springs from the self. Speech springs from the self. Name springs from the self. Text springs from the self. Rights spring from the self. All these indeed spring from the self.
Shanti.